Well now, welcome back to Celticism. The secret to falling asleep is simpler than you think. Don't force your eyes shut. Instead, soften them. Let them rest, half open, unfocused, so the shadows in your room blur and drift. Watch them dance at the edges of your sight, and let them move with the sound of my voice. And if you catch your eyes closing, don't give in too quickly. Gently open them again, just a little. Try to stay with the story until the end. You'll find the harder you try to hear it all, the sooner sleep will take you. So join me now here beside my fire, a new story every week, a place to return to when the night feels long. Take a slow breath in and let it fall away. Let your shoulders drop. Let your arms sink heavy, your fingers quiet. Ease your chest, your legs, and your toes. The weight of the day is gone now. Before we begin tonight's tale, I'll just ask this. If you find yourself drifting with these stories, remember to like, to subscribe, and even comment in the morning to tell me how you got on. And if you find comfort here, return each night. Make this your resting place, your fireside, a ritual to carry you into sleep. So, are you settled? Good. Now let's begin. The first tale of the night is called The Confession. They say you can't take it with you, riches, land, cattle, none of it, and maybe they're right. Maybe, but I'll tell you this much, you can't take guilt. You can drag shame with you till your bones are dust. And that's what I've done, stranger. You want to know why I can't close my eyes at night, why the wind outside that window has a woman's cry in it, why the shadows on my walls are never still. It's the fair folk, and that's the truth of it. It started small, it always does. I moved a stone, just one. It was in the way of a drain I was cutting down the field. My father said, "Leave it where it lies, Ger, that's fairy work, not for our hands." But I was young, proud, and thought myself cleverer than the old stories, so I dug it up, rolled it off into the hedge, and cursed the sweat from my brow. That night, I heard knocking, 3 sharp raps at the window pane, though the lane outside it was empty. I told myself it was the branches, told myself I'd imagined it, but I knew. And then there was the hawthorn. Oh God, I wish I'd left it standing. They warned me never to cut a lone bush in the centre of a field, but I wanted straight furrows, easy work, so I swung the axe. Took it down in 3 blows. By Sunday, the milk in every pail soured black, because that's what they do, isn't it? The cow staggered, her eyes white, and I knew they'd cursed her for my pride. And still I pressed on. drained the bog, built my house on the edge of a ring fort, laughed when the neighbours whispered. Old wives' tales I called them, but the laughter stuck in my throat when I heard music under the earth. Fiddles playing from no human hand, low as thunder, sweet as poison. And when I went to sleep, I dreamt of dancers with no faces, circling round and around, whispering my name. You think that's the worst of it? It's not. No, the worst is, well, it's the banshee. I heard her, clear as you sitting there, crying outside the gable wall. I stepped out, bold as brass, and shouted at her, Saviour, screech for someone that matters. Foolish words, proud words. Next morning, my little lad was dead in the cot. No mark on him, just gone. And I knew whose hand was in it. Since then, every night they've come, whispers, footsteps at the hearth, though no ash stirs, a woman's laugh behind the door, and sometimes the scrape of nails on the window, slow, so I'll hear every inch of it. They don't want me sleeping. They don't want me dying in peace. So I've sat here, growing old, listening to their mocking. I left milk at the sill, bread by the fire, coins in the field, but nothing eased it. Because it wasn't gifts they wanted, it was me. My soul, maybe, my torment, surely. And now I feel the room colder. The fire's low, yet there's a draught that cuts to the bone. You haven't said a word, stranger, but I see you standing there in the shadows, hood pulled down, hands folded over a stick. No, not a stick, a scythe. You're waiting, patient as the grave. Well then, hear my confession, take my sins, and do what you will. For I know when you step forward, I'll not be waking again. And maybe, just maybe, the fair folk will leave me be. The old man's voice trailed to a whisper, his breath rattling in his chest. By the bedside stood the figure, tall, silent, the curved blade of the scythe glimmering faint in the lamplight. No face showed beneath the hood, only darkness. It listened, it waited, and when Jertuhi's final breath left his lips, the figure leaned closer, and the room grew still. Let the old man's voice trail to a whisper. Now let your own body grow as still as that room. Breathe slow and deep and gentle. Feel the quiet settle in your chest. With every exhale, release the day. With every inhale, drift further down into ease. And with your eyes feeling heavier, you'll find yourself carried safely into the next story. And now, the next tale of the night. The Dolls of Rose Donnelly. Rose Donnelly was 12 years old, the daughter of a wealthy merchant in Cork. Her father dealt in fine cloths from the continent, fabrics and silk that brought status to the family. They weren't noble, nor tied to land and tenants like the landlords of the countryside, but they were considered better than most. They lived apart from the workers who loaded the ships. Their house stood tall 3 stories, with polished floors and a grand staircase that wound upstairs. And Rose had her own chamber at the very top, beneath the eaves, larger than many families' entire homes. It was a girl's dream. She slept in a 4-poster bed with silk drapes that caught the light. There was a fine rug from Lisbon on the floor, a wardrobe full of lace dresses and toys brought by her father's ships. Dolls from London, dolls from Paris, a soldier from Germany, a porcelain-faced clown, and a great carved rocking horse that gleamed in the firelight. Rose loved them most nights. But tonight she lay awake. She found herself staring at them in a different way. The room was full of them, shelves lined with dolls, all staring in her direction, glass eyes glinting in the glow of the dying fire. Some smiled, some frowned, some wore painted blush on their cheeks. They sat frozen yet watchful, as if she were the one on display. Rose turned onto her side, trying to close her eyes, when something flickered in her vision. The soldier doll, the one with the saber, seemed to twitch. Her breath caught. She looked again. The arm had shifted, or had it? Now it sat stiffly, staring forward. Rose rubbed her eyes, told herself she was tired, but when she lay down again, another sound broke the silence. A giggle, so soft she almost thought it was the wind. But no, it was a child's laugh, light and quick, from somewhere in the room. Rose bolted upright. The dolls stared back at her, rows upon rows, unmoving. Her hand fumbled for the candle on the bedside table. She struck the flint and lit the wick. The flame hissed, then burned bright. Shadows jumped across the walls, and the dolls' faces seemed to shift with the movement. Her gaze landed on the clown, its painted smile, too wide to be trusted, now leaned slightly sideways as though its head had a tilt. She clutched the candle tighter. "Who's there?" she whispered, but no answer. She listened. The house was not silent. She could hear muffled voices from below. Her parents were entertaining guests, laughter rising faintly, glasses clinking. But up here, in her chamber, the only company she had were the dolls. Then it came, a whisper almost brushing her ear. "Come play with me." Rose nearly dropped the candle. The words were so close, yet no one was beside her. She swung the light around. Shadows stretched and pulled, long arms and distorted faces. The dolls stared. Her breath shook. She whispered, "It's just in my head." Still, her body moved without thinking. She slid from the bed, bare feet cold against the boards, and crouched down. With one trembling hand, she lifted the bed drape and peered beneath. Shadows gathered under the bed, but nothing moved, only the cold oak floor. Her heart pounded. She let out a shaky laugh at her foolishness, dropped the drape and turned to stand. Her wardrobe door stood ajar now. Rose froze. She was certain she'd shut it before bed. The door creaked gently on its hinges. Slowly, candle trembling in her hand, she crossed the room. The dolls seemed to turn as she moved, eyes following her step by step. She pushed the wardrobe open. Dresses swayed gently inside, lace hems brushing against one another like whispering voices, nothing else. Rose closed the door, firmly this time, pressing her palm against the wood. She turned back toward the bed and saw the soldier doll topple forward from the shelf, landing face first on the rug. She gasped, retreating until her back hit the wardrobe, her skin prickled cold. The dolls were not just dolls. Her nursemaid had warned her long ago in the kitchens of fairies who cloaked themselves in glamour, illusions spun to trick human eyes. They could appear as harmless objects, only to drop the mask when it suited them. Rose's throat felt tight. She looked at the rows of toys again. Their painted faces seemed to twitch. Smooth porcelain mouths flickered, showing teeth beneath. Painted eyes blinked just for a moment. She blinked too, and they were dolls again. Her lips moved in a prayer. Another laugh answered, no longer soft and childish, but rough, like a grown woman trying to mimic a child. Her candle flame guttered. She clutched it close, desperate for life. Please, she whispered, leave me be. The room gave no reply, but the rocking horse moved slightly, as if something had brushed against it. Rose climbed back into her bed, curling into the covers, clutching the candle with white knuckles. Come play with me, the voice said again, this time cracked like dry wood splitting. Not a child now, but not quite a woman either, something caught between. Rose shivered. Then she noticed the wardrobe again. The door was ajar once more. No, she breathed. She had shut it firmly. She knew she had. She forced herself up, shaking, and crept forward. The dolls seemed closer now, their rows leaning in. She pressed the door again, and as she did, she heard breathing behind her. Slow, steady, a rasp. She spun. Nothing there. The dolls, the fire, and shadows. The candle flame stretched high, then shrank. Rose's lips trembled. She whispered, Ma, Da, but no answer came from below. The laughter of guests seemed far away now, too far. Then it came again. The voice, come play with me. But now it was dry, croaking, neither man nor woman, neither young nor old. The sound scraped along the boards rising from beneath her bed. Rose froze, and very slowly she turned her head toward the bed, toward the dark beneath. She leaned over the side, candle shaking in her grip. The flame trembled across the floorboards, and two bulging eyes stared back at her, a face pale and sagging caught between man and woman, the skin stretched wrong, wisps of hair clung to a bald scalp, a crooked grin split his face, teeth jagged and gums black. Its long fingers curled on the boards, nails scratching softly. The glamour was breaking. The dolls, the toys, the giggles, they were the mask, and this thing beneath her bed was the truth. Its head tilted slowly, and the grin widened. Come, Play. Rose dropped the candle, the flame sputtered and died. Darkness swallowed the room. And now, as the story ends, you can let your body settle, lighter than before. The dark holds no danger here, only stillness. Your breathing is steady, calm, and safe. With each breath, feel yourself drifting further, as though sinking into the softest bed. Allow your eyes to rest, but not close. Your thoughts to slow and slip gently into relaxation. And the next story of the night is called Paddy Collins and his daughter. The hills were veiled in mist that day, though the sun was high above the clouds. Paddy Collins walked with his daughter Linda at his side, their shoes damp with dew from the long grass. The road curved by the edge of the wood, where the trees rose black against the whiteness, and the air seemed still, as though waiting. Paddy was quiet. He often sang when they walked, tunes from the fairs, old reels his father had taught him. But this day his lips were pressed thin. Linda noticed, though she said nothing, skipping beside him, her ribbon bouncing in her hair. Then, just before the bend in the path, the mist moved. It parted as if pushed aside, and a figure stepped out onto the track. He was tall and cloaked, the hood drawn low so only his nose and mouth could be seen. His lips were pale, his chin too smooth, almost too perfect. From beneath the hood came a faint amber glow, hidden yet alive. The air around his shoulders shimmered like heat above stone, but instead of warmth, a freezing cold pressed against the skin. Linda slowed her steps. She squeezed her father's hand. The stranger stopped before them. For a moment there was silence, heavy and endless, and then he spoke. His voice was calm, measured, and deep as water. Giagwich a porrick, tá an lá ciún, an ceog daus an ceoch. Clishim the cree ag búlan ar búla drum a faoin spare. Linda tugged her father's sleeve. Da, what's he saying? Paddy cleared his throat, eyes fixed on the figure. He's greeting me, pet. He says the day is quiet and the mist is dancing on the hills. The stranger tilted his head, the pale lips curving in the faintest smile. Again he spoke, his words soft but flowing, each syllable steady as a drum. His father the Sul, agus a gira an trá, tá na blianta ag titim ar ganamh, tá dú páiste leidiú tá sí slán. Linda looked up again, eyes wide. What's he saying now, Da? Paddy squeezed her hand. He says our walk has been long, and that you're strong, and that you're safe. The words should have been comforting, but Paddy's voice was tight. the skin around his eyes drawn. The stranger's mouth moved again. His tone was almost kind, yet too measured, too smooth to be human. Vanad tu mea kun anish, ni by agla earth, ni by brown earth. Linda frowned. Da, what does that mean? Paddy glanced down at her quickly, forcing a smile. He says we'll be heading home soon, that there's nothing to fear. But that was not the fullness of it. The stranger's words had gone deeper and heavier. The three stood in the mist, time stretching thin. Linda felt the silence around them, as though the world itself was holding its breath. The stranger stepped closer. The cold that rippled from him pressed against her face, yet sweat prickled the back of her neck. Again he spoke, his voice low and deliberate. Ta tu galunch taita. The words hung in the air like iron. Linda blinked up at her father. Da? What's he saying? Paddy did not answer. His lips parted, but no words came. The stranger lifted a pale hand from the folds of his cloak and placed it on Paddy's shoulder. The touch was graceful, almost gentle, but it allowed no refusal. Slowly, with a bowed head, Paddy stepped forward. Da? Linda's voice broke. He did not look back. The stranger guided him step by step into the whiteness of the mist. Their figures grew faint, then vanished, leaving only silence. Linda stood frozen, heart hammering, until at last her legs carried her running down the path toward home. The cottage door burst open, and she flung herself into her mother's arms, sobbing out her story. Nora Collins held her tight, rocking her, her own face white as chalk. She did not argue with Linda, nor dismiss the tale as a childish fancy. She only whispered over and over, "Oh, Paddy, oh, Paddy," until her voice broke into weeping. That night, long after she was meant to sleep, Linda crept from her bed. Bare feet touched the cold stairs as she leaned to hear the voices from the kitchen below. Her mother sat by the fire, her brother, Brendan, beside her. Their voices were hushed but heavy with grief. Nora's words carried clearly up the stairwell. "You struck the bargain, Brendan. The very night Linda was born, there was a changeling come to the cradle to take her. Paddy begged them to leave her, begged them not to touch her, and they answered. They said they would spare the child if he promised himself in her place. Promised them they could claim him when she was old enough to live without her father's arms. And tonight," her voice cracked, "tonight they came." Linda pressed both hands to her mouth, tears running hot down her cheeks. The words were too much for her heart to hold. Her father had been taken, not by chance or accident, but by a promise he had made to save her life, and she never saw him again. And now let the mist roll away. The road is empty, The woods are still, and there are no bargains waiting for you. Your shoulders can sink lower, your chest rise and fall in an easy rhythm. Breathe slow, in and out. Each breath softer and quieter, carrying you deeper into comfort as we drift onward into the next story. They say in the old woods, where the trees knot and twist, a hag lingers, older than any church or stone. Some swear she waits for the unwary, feeding on their fear. Others simply say she is the woods, whispering with every branch and crow. This poem is called The Hag of the Hollow. In the marrow murk of midnight, where the bramble thickets bite, where the ashwood twists in shadow and the moon forgets its light, there she crouches, crook-backed, crack-fingered, knotted hair in strands, the hag of the hollow, with the forest in her hands, gnarled-fingered, nail-splintered, whispering in clicks, tongue like a serpent, voice dripping tricks. She mutters in a metre not of man nor of beast, a language of the timber where the crows make feast. Step too deep, child, stray too near, you'll taste the damp rot of her breath in your ear. Every root is a snare, every stone hides an eye, and her shadow moves quicker than the moths that fly. Teeth like splinters, eyes moss green, skin hangs loose where the bones are seen. Her back bends double, her knees bend wrong, and her hum is the tune of a funeral song. Some say she's a woman in centuries past, who bartered her beauty for the power to last. Now bark is her flesh, and thorn is her vein, and she lives in the hollow where night holds rain. Hear the crack of timber, that's a spine in her bend. Hear the scrape of branches, that's her claws extend. Every owl call is warning, every fox cry plea, to turn your face back and away from the tree. But the bold still wander, and the lost still stray, and the hag has patience, she waits all day, till the dusk falls down and the paths run blind, and the bramble grips tighter on the heel behind. She won't strike sudden, she won't roar loud, she creeps at your shoulder, she hides in the crowd, a laugh in the rustle, a sigh in the rain, a finger on your neck like a wire of pain. And if you should see her, head cocked, eyes bare, with a noose of hair dripping damp on the air, don't scream, don't beg, don't stumble or fall, for the hag of the hollow will swallow it all. So the tale runs on in whisper and rhyme, older than stone, older than time, a crook-backed terror where the black trees sway. The hag of the hollow still waits for her prey. And now for the next tale. Larry Donovan's Bothy. Name's Larry Donovan. Some call me a tramp, some call me a vagabond, and truth be told, I've been called worse. I've walked more roads in this country than I could ever count, slept in barns, hedges, even under boats turned upside down, and now and again when fortune has a bit of pity, you stumble across a bothy. You know the sort. A little stone shack left for wanderers, 10 foot by 6, if that, 2 cots and a fire grate. Just enough to keep a man alive through a wet night. I came across one on the heath, thick rolling mist across the ground, curling round the stones so you could barely see a yard in front of you. I was thankful for it. My bones were sore, my belly empty, and the cold was in deep. The place was damp inside, always is, walls sweating, floor gritty with old ash, but it was shelter, and I knew all I needed was fire. A bit of flame to warm the blood, and I'd manage. So I went out into the mist. The heathland was quiet, maybe too quiet. Not a bird, no stir, just that white veil and the sound of my own boots dragging through it. I found some scrub wood, dead branches lying about, and I broke what I could. But it wasn't enough, not near. I needed more, and there it was, a hawthorn tree, gnarled and dark, half hidden in the fog. Now, any man with sense would tell you never to lay a blade or a hand to a hawthorn. Sacred tree, they say, bound to the good people. But I didn't know in the dark, only saw branches, good, dry branches that would burn. I snapped a few off, didn't think twice, and hauled them back. Inside I built the fire, stuffed the hearth, lit it with the stub of a candle I carried. Flame caught quick enough, but the smell was different, sweet and thick, like herbs burning, like something that shouldn't be in your lungs. The smoke curled heavy, stuck to me, filled the body till the walls wavered. I lay back in the cot, thinking only to rest my eyes, but the more I breathed, the heavier I got. My arms like stone, my eyelids near glued. I knew I should get up, push open the door, let air in, but I couldn't. It was like sinking under water. And that's when I saw it. Across from me, in the other cot, something was there, curled up, small, knees to its chest, pale face, so white it near glowed, black hair hanging wild, dark rings under its eyes like bruises. And the mouth, Jesus, the mouth, open wide, too wide, as if it had been caught in a scream and never shut again. I blinked, and it was gone. The cot was empty, only the smoke and the crackle of hawthorn. I told myself it was the fire, the fumes, nothing more. But each time I drifted off and snapped back awake, there it was again, first curled on the cot, watching me, then crouched lower on the floor, the next time on hands and knees, hair hanging, crawling slow, always closer. My body was lead, my eyes blurred, I could barely breathe. Each time they opened, the thing was nearer, dragging itself forward with those white hands, fingers long, nails scraping the stone. The mouth never shut, that great gaping hole of a mouth. It was like it was frozen in terror, or like it wanted to swallow me whole. I tried to move, to shift, to cry out, but I couldn't. My chest was tight and my tongue was stuck. I lay trapped, the smoke pressing me down. Another blink. It was halfway across. Another. It was at my feet. And then, the last time, I opened my eyes and it was right there, inches from me, that pale face filling my sight. Wide black eyes, dark hollows, hair dripping down, and that mouth, that endless mouth hanging open so close I felt the cold of it on my skin. I don't know if it breathed. I don't know if it made a sound. All I know is I stared into it and I couldn't move, not scream nor pray, and then, well, I can't rightly tell you what happened after. Maybe I blacked out. Maybe I died there in that body. Maybe I walked away and don't remember. All I know is I woke later and the fire was out. The place was cold. The air still thick with that sweet stink of hawthorn. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, even now, I see it again, curled in the corner, waiting for me to drift. And now let the smoke fade from your thoughts. The room you lie in is safe, clear, still. There's no figure in the corner, no wide eyes watching. Breathing slow and down. Let your limbs grow soft, your body sink deeper. And if a shadow stirs at the edge of your vision, you can let it pass like mist on the heat. You're safe and you're calm, and we drift now into the next story. And now the final tale of the night is called The Haunting of Lily Keane. She was the youngest in the factory, barely more than a girl, maybe 17, even if that, shy, small-voiced, not made for a place like the Matchworks, but times were hard and the Keane family needed the money. So Lily took her place among the other women, those hard-faced creatures who had worked the floor so long, their teeth blackened, their gums eaten by the phosphorus. They looked at her with their skinny, crow-like faces, their cheeks sharp as bone, their eyes mean and narrow. They laughed in shrill voices when she passed, whispered with mouths half rotted, showing smiles more like wounds than grins. They never liked her, never welcomed her, only mocked, and Lily, shy as she was, said nothing. She kept her head down, swept the floor, did her work. The match factory was a place of noise in the day, the thump of machines, the clatter of presses, the endless rasp of sticks cut and dry. The air itself was poison filled with the sharp sting of phosphorus. It coated the walls, the clothes, the skin. Every breath tasted of foulness. Every corner glowed faintly with dust that seemed to carry its own sick light. But when the end of the day came, when the bell rang and the women stamped out. There was only silence. That night, Lily had been left with the key. The foreman gone, the women hurrying into the street, and her alone to close the door. She lingered at her bench, gathering her things, hearing the click of the clock as each woman left. One by one, the echoes of their boots on stone faded until the last door slammed and she was alone. The silence was thick, too thick. The factory was vast, a great iron-bellied place of pipes and furnaces, of shadows that clung to every beam and corner. The machines stood still like beasts sleeping, but the furnaces still throbbed, their doors shut, their fire low, but the rumble was there, a hiss, a groan, as though the factory itself still breathed. Lily pulled her shawl tighter. She didn't like being last. She'd heard the story, same as the others. They spoke of Eddie Cleary, a man who'd worked the factory years before their time, a drinker, a troublemaker. Some said he'd hung himself in the rafters above the furnace floor. Others whispered he hadn't done it himself at all, that the foreman, tired of his ways, had strung him up and left him swinging. Either way, he was dead, and dead in the factory, and some swore he'd never left. The women had taunted her with, "Don't get locked in, Lily," they'd say with their rotten grins. "Eddie will come for you if you're last out." She tried not to think of it, but as she moved across the floor, the shadows seemed longer. The hiss of the furnaces grew louder. The pipes groaned like voices. She kept her eyes low, sweeping, locking drawers, tidying her bench. But every so often she'd lift her head, certain she was being watched. A laugh, so faint she thought it only a creak of metal, but then again, echoing, carried through the iron bones of the place, a man's laugh, stretched thin and hollow, as though it had come from the walls themselves. She froze, her breath shallow. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked, small and frightened. The laugh came again, rolling down the long aisles of benches, bouncing from the iron pipes, impossible to place. She gripped her shawl tight, turned in a circle. Nothing, only shadows. She walked faster, sweeping more, gathering her courage. Only a few more tasks and she could lock the doors, but the laugh followed, louder now, echoing in time with her steps. It became a game of cat and mouse. She turned a corner, the laugh was behind her. She crossed the floor, it came from ahead. She ducked between the great pipes. It rang from above, from the rafters where men once worked. Who's there? She cried again, but her voice was swallowed by the iron belly of the factory. And then she saw him at the far end of the floor between the furnaces. A figure staggered into view, tall, crooked, his head bent low to one side as though the neck was broken. A rope dangled loose about his throat, swaying like a tie across his chest. His face was dead white, his skin slack, eyes fixed and black. And still the laugh echoed, though his mouth never moved. His face remained still, cold and corpse-like, while the sound of laughter filled the factory, growing louder, filling every pipe and corner. Lily stumbled back, her heart hammering. He moved toward her, slow, 1 foot dragging, shoulders hunched, head lolling to the side. The rope swung with each step, his eyes never left hers. She backed away, step by step, until the heat of the furnace at her back grew hot, too hot. The iron doors hissed, the glow bleeding through the cracks. She pressed against the wall, nowhere left to go. He came closer, closer, until she could smell the rot on him, the damp of the grave, the stink of smoke clinging to his clothes. She screamed and shut her eyes. Silence. When she dared open them again, he was gone. The floor was empty. Only the furnace hissed. She turned, trembling, reaching for the door, relief flooding her chest. And that was when the furnace roared open behind her. From the mouth of the fire itself, Eddie Cleary lunged. His white face burst through the flame, rope swinging, eyes wide and black. The laughter filled her ears louder than ever as he grabbed her by the shoulders and dragged her screaming into the fire. The door slammed shut, and the factory was silent once more. And now that the factory is dark again, the furnaces cold, the laughter gone, there's nothing waiting for you in your room. Only shadows that soften as your eyes drift. Breathe in and let it fall away. Let your body sink deeper, safe, calm, resting. And if you found yourself drifting tonight, remember to like, to subscribe, and even comment in the morning to let me know how you got on. Come back tomorrow night and the night after, and make this your resting place, here beside the fire, with new stories every week. Sleep now. Let the sound of the storm take you away. Good night.